already made her choice for the 2028 Democratic nominee, and I guess you'll never have any guess of who it could be. We'll save the suspense for later. And finally, California is importing gas and oil from the Bahamas. We're going to get to that and more on tonight's episode of the California Underground, starting right now. Well, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the California Underground. I'm your host, Phil. We got a bunch of stuff to get to, including Gavin Newsom galavanting and running around all over Munich, spreading anti-Trump and anti-American rhetoric. Nancy Pelosi putting her hat in the ring for who she thinks should be the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. And instead of drilling oil here in California, which is much closer, we've decided we're going to import it from the Bahamas. Oh, and AOC made a horrible gaffe. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, let me bring in my trusty co-host, the best, the fastest researcher in the West, Camille. How are you doing tonight, Camille?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am better than earlier in the week. I got whatever was going around. It seems like everybody's been getting it, and it's not good. Some sort of cold or flu or something like that. It's hit me on Sunday, knocked me out for a couple days, and I'm coming out of it now. So I feel much better.
Good to hear.
Glad we were able to get a show in tonight. Hopefully everyone's staying dry and safe and warm out there. The rain, well, let us know where you are in California if you got bad rain, because I know Southern California, we got slammed with rain just these past couple of days. And today was scary rain. But let's get started with our first story. Camille, where do you think Gavin Newsom should be as the governor of California?
I'm gonna just throw this out there. Just stay with me here. Somewhere in the state of California.
That would be a good guess. I think most common sense people will believe that the governor of California should stay in California. But Newsom decided he is going to go to Munich for the security conference, which is where some other Trump administration officials were, because it's a month or so ago, he was, where was he? He was over at the Davos conference, and he was over in Europe. So what was he doing over there? Spreading more anti-Trump stuff, running his shadow candidacy. Let's hear from Newsom himself. Why are you in Munich?
Why are you here tonight?
Well, I'm here in many respects to remind everyone that Trump is temporary. He'll be gone in a matter of years. States like California are permanent. We're reliable, stable partners. I had a chance just a moment ago to be on a panel talking about climate policy. We saw what Trump just did with the endangerment finding, completely rolling back progress the last half century, wants to recreate the 19th century, and we want to transform our economy. We want to dominate in the next great global economy, low carbon, green growth, and I'm reminding world leaders of that.
Do the leaders you've spoken to here still think that America is the leader of the free world?
No, they see us as a wrecking ball. They see us as unreliable, and a lot of them think it's irrevocable. They don't think we'll ever come back to our original form. I'm not as convinced of that. Whatever happens, we can undo, we can shape shift, we can fix. And while trust is difficult to reestablish, there's too much at stake in a from a multi-international perspective that we have a lot of work to do once Trump's done, and I think it's not going to be undone permanently from my perspective. Trump's going to get shellacked in the midterms, he knows that. The world, I think, is becoming more and more familiar with that reality. He's going to lose, likely in the Supreme Court, on the tariff question. So he'll have to use other statutes and authority in tariffs. So he's going to lose a lot of leverage, and he's going to lose a lot of his reputational strength. He's increasingly weak, masquerading as strong. And I think as a consequence of that, it will open the door again to diplomacy and common sense.
All right. That's why Gavin Newsom says he's in Munich, is because he wants to spread diplomacy and democracy and all that stuff in Munich, because Trump is temporary. And I guess Gavin thinks he's king of California forever because he's done in a couple of months here in California. And he's not forever. He's temporary here in California as well. But I guess he's already just rolling into his presidential role. He's just going to skip 2026. He's just going to move right into the White House. He's already like drawing the curtains, measuring, getting furniture ready. He's ready to go to the White House. He's been running this like shadow campaign against Trump, which comes off as strong, like pick me energy. It just comes off as desperate as opposed to like, I don't know, maybe focus on what's going on here in California because there's enough stuff going on here in California. And fine if you've solved everything in California, if you've solved homelessness, if you've solved the affordability crisis, if you've solved the housing issue, great. And maybe you can go off to Munich and do everything. But it's kind of like with little kids, and you can't have dessert or ice cream until you do all your chores. And Gavin Newsom hasn't done all of his chores yet, so he doesn't get the treat of going off to Munich. What are your thoughts about what he said in that little clip?
I have 3 thoughts, actually.
Okay.
Well, I probably have more than that, but three standouts. So first off, he says he's over there to remind everyone that Trump is temporary. And I feel like he should come back to California and remind Katie Porter that Trump is temporary. And that, she's running for governor here and keeps her entire campaign is something about Trump, anti-Trump, Trump this, Trump that. So anyway, that we've spoken about plenty. Second thing is what I first noticed. So I watched the video, like I watched it and I listened. And then the second time I turned the sound off and just watched. He's actually using normal people hand motions. He's not all over the place. And I don't know why that stood out to me, but he's literally just kind of, I talk with my hands. He's talking with his hands doing this, but he's not doing this and like his made up yoga poses and like, he doesn't do all that. And I'm like, what is it about Europe that makes him suddenly become normal? I don't know. And then, okay, wait, I had an important third note. Shoot.
Well, while you're thinking of it, he did bring out that Trump wants to bring us back to the 19th century because of their rollback on the endangerment issue. You don't know what he's talking about. So the EPA under President Trump and Lee Zeldman just rolled back this endangerment rule, which was implemented under President Obama 2009. And basically what it does is said that climate change was an endangerment. So basically anything that could cause climate change was now an endangerment, and the federal government can basically regulate all of it. Here's a short timeline. Starting 2010, the EPA National Highway Traffic Safety Administration began issuing tailpipe emission standards for passenger cars and light trucks. 2024, Biden administration increased GHG tailpipe emissions, so more tailpipe emissions. The Obama and Biden administrations also championed credits, which allowed automakers to make other changes. So you had to get these credits. These off credits results in things like start-stop feature. So I don't know if you saw Trump had that commercial or ad on social media. No longer is it going to be the start-stop anymore. You can now just have your car idle. And then both Obama and Biden ramped up emissions on oil, natural gas, and coal. So the purpose of this is that if he's talking about the 19th century, maybe he got confused and thought the early 21st century, because that's when this endangerment thing was implemented. And he kind of skipped over an entire century and went all the way back to the 19th century. And it's the idea is get rid of all these regulations so that factories and energy and cars and like we can start building stuff and not worry about so many EPA regulations. That was one thing I want to point out.
I did notice that, although I wasn't familiar with everything that you just brought up, the Obama thing. I wasn't familiar with that, but when he said 19th century, I was like, I don't think you meant that. But so yeah, you just clarified that. I did remember my third point.
Okay.
Gavin Newsom is like, he's always off somewhere. He's always leaving California and has been since he was elected back in 2018. He's just like, all right, I got elected, sayonara. And he's off doing all his things. And so it's almost like, can we really blame him for all the problems here when he wasn't really here to even help create them? Yes, we can. But it feels like he can almost say that. Well, I was never there, so Maybe it's the lieutenant governor's fault who, is running the show.
Maybe. Yeah, he could say it's Elena
I'm not
Kalinakis.
defending Gavin Newsom by any means, but I just kind of thought of that. It's kind of like the deadbeat dad who leaves and doesn't raise the child. And so it's like, are they responsible because emotionally they checked out of the child's life and the child grew up to be a horrible child? I'm not saying this happens with every situation. I just mean like when this child grows up to be a horrible person and you're like, well, was it because the dad was absent? Or if the horrible dad was there and then did a horrible job raising the child, is it his, like whose fault is it here? So that's what I related to.
Trump obviously wanted to always take the bait. He also wanted to chime in about Newsom being there. And there was something else he did while he was there. He signed this pact with the UK. Again, he's pretending and doing this nice dance of like he pretends that he's president. You're not president yet. You're the governor of a state. Governors of states can't sign treaties, so they signed something called a what do they call it? Mutual understanding or something. Is that what it's called? UK is
like the second or third one he's done like this.
Yeah, he did it with China too.
Yeah.
He signed a memorandum of understanding, basically between the UK and California, that they were going to pinky promise they're going to work on green energy together. But it's not a treaty. It's not binding on the state or anything like that. Instead, it's just like it's purely almost performative and theatrical in the sense that it doesn't really have any legal effect. It's just kind of you sign in a note and they sign a note. And so President Trump obviously got in on it. Let's see if even with my voice, you think I can pull off the Trump voice? Excuse me. Let me get in the mode. The UK's got enough trouble without getting involved with Gavin Newsom. Gavin is a loser. Everything he's touched turns to garbage. His state has gone to hell, and even his environmental work is a disaster. So that's what Trump had to say about it.
Of course.
Remarks came shortly after Newsom signed a memorandum of understanding in London with UK Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, pledging cooperation on clean energy technologies, including offshore wind. The agreement also aims to expand access for British firms, including Octopus Energy, to California's market and to boost collaboration between research institutions on both sides of the Atlantic. And then it goes on to say Newsom, a likely 2028 presidential, it's almost a for certainty that he's going to be a 2028 presidential candidate. Let's see, did he go on to say anything else? No, that was basically it. That was Trump taking aim at.
Maybe we have it all wrong. Maybe Gavin's entire plan is to try to get California to secede from the union, and he's just going to be president of California and have all these allegiances with these other countries.
I mean, that's an easy workaround. If he wants to secede from the union, then he could just name himself like president of California, and maybe Oregon and Washington secede as well. He could be the president of the West Coast.
Yeah. And I'm not being serious. So I'm just saying, but no, I don't believe that, in case anyone watching this is like, wow, she's really lost it. No.
Let's see. So he wasn't the only person in Munich. Somebody else who's a 2028 Democratic presidential contender was also in Munich.
Okay.
And she stepped onto the world stage and let everybody know her brilliant foreign policy insight. Of course, I'm talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York. She was there, and this is what she had to say after being questioned about Taiwan.
And should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
I
Have you ever had a dreams that you had you could you do you want you could do so you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
I can't tell the difference between those two clips.
AOC, she's so pretty until she opens her mouth. And then her voice sounds like an 11-year-old girl. Her responses sound like a 7-year-old girl. I would almost say Kamala Harris is more coherent than AOC.
By that clip, yeah. Kamala could actually spit out a word salad that is likely on topic, maybe on topic. That was nowhere near
Right.
anything coherent at all.
Right.
About, I mean, she went into this whole gobbledygook about education and economic, and she's like, let me just throw out all industries and say it furthers our interest.
Any word
Okay.
she could think of at the moment. She was like looking around the room. She's like, red chair and
Blue hat
lights
and light.
and education
Education and Green New Deal
and
and scene
foreign policy, America.
and America and democracy. Democracy. She
Kamala
did another.
Harris would have just been like, you know, should we send the troops? The question is, should America support them with troops? And I think what we think of China, the country, not the dishes. And when we think of Taiwan and sending our troops, you know, it's something we have to think about.
It's a serious issue. We have to think about these serious issues that have to deal with China and Taiwan. Thank you. She was also asked a question about Western civilization, and she made a comment about how Marco Rubio wrongfully said that cowboys come from Spain, because she said, well, they don't come from Spain, they come from Mexico. Which I don't think she knows her history, which is where do you think Mexico came from? What was Mexico? Mexico was a colony of a European country that was Spain, and it came from the vaqueros, who were sort of ranchers, cowboys in Spain, and that's where it came from. That's where we get the cowboy culture. But she said that no, that Europe and white culture are, you know, their contributions to civilization are very thin, very thin. It's not that impressive, Western civilization and white culture. And you go, oh, okay, and just whatever built the United States and North America at that point, South America, mostly South America, but sure, whatever. That's what you believe. All right. So those are our two top contending candidates for Democratic nominee. Good job, Democrats. Those are your two top people going in 2028. I don't know who else you have going.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck, America, because those are your two top right there. You have one who can't answer a question about Taiwan and one who's getting his centuries all wrong and loves using his hand motions. So, all right, I want to take a look at the comments real quick. Everyone hanging out. Thank you, everyone, for checking in wherever you are. A lot of people checking in. Fountain Valley, what's up, Fountain Valley? Roseville. Excuse me if my voice sounds a little different. Like I said, I'm getting over being sick. Folsom, what's up? Occidental, California. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and chat and all that stuff. And make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. All right. And speaking of 2028 presidential candidates, Nancy Pelosi, who's set to retire, she has picked who she thinks should be the 2028 Democratic nominee. I'll save the suspense. I'll save the answer until after this video. So we'll watch the video first and then we can discuss.
Welcome back. Nancy Pelosi, former speaker, reportedly has one more campaign in mind these days, and it is not for Congress. She is still retiring, but according to new reporting from Axios, she is a big fangirl of California Governor Gavin Newsom. Fangirl is a quote. She's working behind the scenes to boost his 2028 presidential hopes. Let's bring in California Post senior editor Joel Pollack. Pelosi and other older Dems, like Steny Hoyer comes to mind, have been roundly criticized by their own party for failing to groom a new next generation of party leaders. Maybe this sounds like this is Pelosi trying to do.
With all the Epstein stuff going on, grooming is probably not the right word to use. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Also, when she's like the older candidates, she needed a better word, a few better words in there.
Older candidates, the really aged, like the really old, wrinkly ones, those ones, yeah, they need to groom a young candidate.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yes.
Pelosi trying to do that.
Well, Nancy Pelosi is not only a veteran political player, but a winner, and she usually picks winners. She couldn't keep Trump out of the White House, but she does have significant clout within the Democratic Party. Keep in mind, she's not only connected to that older generation of establishment Democrats, but she also has significant credibility on the left. And even though she had some fights with AOC and the Squad, ultimately they accepted her leadership. She may be one of the few figures left in the Democratic Party who can span those two generations of the party. And her endorsement is going to mean a lot for Gavin Newsom's fundraising and for what they call the donor primary, that is, the collection of money in the year or so before a presidential campaign actually begins.
Well, and that, I think, public support, but even more importantly, I think getting access to her incredibly large donor base could potentially be game-changing for somebody like Newsom, right?
Absolutely. And of course, he is mastering the art of social media. He's trolling President Trump. And critics such as myself, will say that his record in California is very poor. But Democratic Party primary voters don't seem to be in the mood to judge candidates based on their record. Right now, they want a fighter. They want someone who can stand up to Donald Trump. And Pelosi certainly did that. We all remember when she tore up his State of the Union address. And Gavin Newsom is from the same mold. They're also, of course, both from San Francisco. They have a distant family relation, and they've been partners for many years. So in that sense, it's a natural pairing, but it could also be a very consequential one.
That's right. I forgot about, there is some familiar, it's like her niece is married to his fourth cousin, or that's not right, but something like that between the two of them. She's helped him already, too, right, with that big redistricting push in the state.
Yes, when he was facing upside-down polling on Proposition 50, which is basically a partisan gerrymander of California, she got on the phone and told donors they had to support it. And lo and behold, with a little bit of money, in fact, with a lot of money, the polls flipped around and Proposition 50 passed. So that was an early win for the two of them. And as long as she stays involved and stays political and engaged, then I think he does have a chance to maintain his lead as the early Democratic Party frontrunner for the presidential nomination.
Very early, to be fair, but it is worth starting to track all this stuff.
Okay, so Nancy Pelosi, no shock, is supporting Gavin Newsom to be the next Democratic nominee. I do want to clear this up because just as a little factoid, everyone always says that they're like aunt and uncle. It's not fourth cousin. It's not that distant, but here's a helpful little chart to show you. So Gavin's dad was William Newsom Jr. His sister was Barbara Newsom. She married Ron Pelosi, who was brothers with Paul Pelosi. And Paul Pelosi married Nancy Pelosi. So what does that make them?
It doesn't make them anything, technically.
Not really related at all. So
My
I guess
husband's brother's wife's family is not related to me.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to give her a loving term of aunt, you could, but they're not blood related at all. But it's close enough.
And they're not even related by marriage. And I believe that marriage didn't even last. So they're really not related. And you know, what's funny? So I was glad that that video went into it. And I was going to ask you if we could address that tonight, because it does drive me crazy when people are like, well, his Auntie Pelosi. And I'm like, technically, she was never his aunt. And yeah, she was never his aunt. And that's really all there is to it. And so that's no defense of either of them. I just like facts, and that's a fact. So if we could all just collectively stop referring to her as his Auntie Pelosi, because she never was. And maybe they were really close. I don't know. Some people, maybe that like distant family thing is really close. But so my husband has 3 brothers, and we're like really close to one of them. He was actually just out here last week, and he's married, the brother, and brother's wife has a couple sisters. I've never even met them. They're not family. I'm not like hating on them, but they're nobody to me.
Yeah.
So
distant, very distant. Although they've been close. Obviously, she's been part of his like upbringing. The interesting thing I've found about Gavin Newsom, if you've been keeping your ear to the ground, and excuse me, just popped a cough drop because of my throat and the cold, is a lot of left-leaning publications are now starting to come out against Gavin Newsom. One of them being The Atlantic, and there was another one, New York Magazine, but a lot of these are behind paywalls, and believe me, I don't want to pay any of these left-wing publications more money or any money at all. They're all behind paywalls. This one I did find on MSN. So it's from The Atlantic. Let me pull it up real quick. It's interesting that they are starting to go after Gavin Newsom. And I don't know who's behind it, but it seems very coordinated. It goes on to say, a key source of Newsom's appeal is the belief that he's electable. It's easy to see why the party's voters such a favorable view of his political skills. The California governor has combined an ideological flexibility, lately embracing both the abundance agenda. I don't know what his abundance agenda is. It seems like a scarcity agenda here in California, and dialogues with conservatives with a relentless mockery of President Trump. His new persona as a fighting moderate, a Democrat in tune with the country's shifting desires and ruthless toward the man at top, deftly speaks to the needs of a party desperate to regain the White House. But Newsom has a problem. He's been a California politician for decades and has held the state's governorship since 2019. During his tenure, the state has been a laboratory for some of the Democratic Party's most politically fraught policies and instincts, which has left it less affordable and more culturally radical than it used to be. His record not only raises pressing questions about how effectively he could govern as president, it also provides opponents an endless buffet of vulnerabilities across social, and economic issues. So they're going after him. Excuse me. Apologize for that. On a whole bunch of different things. And then they're kind of pointing out his record's a problem. Homelessness is a problem. Affordability. If you're going to campaign on affordability, that's a problem. So he can be a troll on social media all he wants, and he can go to Europe and sign these memorandums of understanding with Britain and stuff like that. But when it comes presidential time, they're going to run ads about his record, and it's not pretty. So I'll let me ask your thoughts on that one.
Well, I just thought maybe we could take a little bit. Well, you need to take a little bit to drink some water, but
Thank you.
To talk about what can he actually factually run on for president. You had just posted today a photo that on Instagram, you posted a photo from outside LA City Hall. Now, I realize that each county and each city has their leadership as well, which is failing big time in LA. And so we can't 100% blame all these things on Gavin Newsom. But it feels like he's like supposed to be kind of the manager, the CEO of California. I mean, he's the governor, but all these people, he needs to kind of be like, hey, let's get it together. and he's not doing that. And it feels like the majority is failing. So the photo that you posted of City Hall, because people are probably like, well, what was the photo? There's like so much trash just piled up. I don't even know what happened. Did like a bunch of people just go dump their trash? Did a trash truck catch fire and unload right in front of City Hall? It was so bad. I sincerely don't know what happened. And if it happened overnight or if it's just a thing that's been piling up, because I didn't click on it and read what's going on. So is there anything factual, positive that Gavin Newsom can run on that he did for California?
Oof. I mean, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, is there anything I can think of that he could at least run on? But to your point about like he's the head of California. He could say if he was a hands-off governor who was like, well, this is your issue, it's a county, it's a city level thing, that's fine. But he's had enough press conferences of him saying, well, we're going to get tough on homelessness, we're going to get tough on all of this and encampments, and we're going to get the CHP involved, and we're going to get all the National Guard.
He's got a lot of binders.
A lot of binders of empty pages. He says we're going to clean up the encampments in Tenderloin, and then nothing's changed. So he's campaigned here locally on a lot of things. He promised a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they haven't come through. So it is, he doesn't have anything that I can think of. Housing hasn't gotten better, affordability hasn't gotten better, homelessness hasn't gotten better. By any metric, I can't think of anything that's gotten better under Gavin Newsom in his 8 years as governor of California. So that's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to run on a record of nothing.
Well, I know what he could run on that the left always loves and always gets behind, and that he has done for California. Expanded abortion.
Yeah, he could say that. They did expand that. Wasn't it the proposition that
the states and anyone can come here to seek an abortion? We won't turn them in. We'll fund it. He just promised $90 million to Planned Parenthood. So, and the left loves that. I mean, that's kind of I'm surprised AOC didn't pivot to, well, education, but abortion.
As long as abortion is still legal in Taiwan, that
win 2028 right there. All she had to say was abortion, and everyone would have been like, yes. Not everyone, but I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm pro-life. I've been very clear about that, but the left is typically pro-choice, and that is definitely something that you could say is a positive if that's your belief, that Gavin Newsom has certainly promised and what's the word I'm looking for? He's come through for that. So I think that's one thing, whether you think that's positive or negative, but it's one true thing that he can definitely campaign on, that he's done.
He's probably done some cultural stuff, but in terms of kitchen table politics, which wins the day in presidential elections, I can't think of anything he's done. He'll probably say tax credits, which we lambasted political candidates last week about tax credits, and how tax credits are sort of useless because you get a credit back at the end of the year. Why don't you just remove the taxes in the first place and make it more affordable so people can keep money in their pocket? I honestly can't think of anything. Net migration out of California, losing congressional seats because of the fact that they've lost so many people. How many businesses have fled? Mark Zuckerberg has left. Tesla has left.
Somebody left today. Who was it that announced today?
I didn't see that, but
Spielberg.
There's who?
Spielberg
left?
That's I could have sworn I read that tweet today. Now I have to
now
go
we're
look.
gonna have to look this up. Yeah, I can't think of anything, but Nancy Pelosi, and if you follow the history of California politics, especially from San Francisco Bay Area, they are like thick as thieves, and it's been growing and expanding since the late 60s. I want to start with a guy named Philip Burton, who mentored Nancy Pelosi and got her into Congress. And then Nancy Pelosi became the most powerful woman in Congress, in the House of Representatives. And she's very powerful. And she, like Gavin Newsom, they do have one thing going for them, which is they can raise a ton of money. And money does pay for it does pay for ads, it does pay for reach, it does pay for all that war chest that you're going to need when you run in the Democratic primary against other people. So it's definitely helpful to have Nancy, but it's not shocking Nancy Pelosi is backing Gavin Newsom. Of course, she wants him to be president. I mean, it's not like it's a betrayal. And yeah, it's not shocking, but it is going to be interesting to see as we inch closer to 2028 what prominent Democrats start aligning with certain candidates. For example, if an AOC runs, does that mean a Bernie Sanders is going to align with her? If Gavin Newsom runs, does that mean more California Democrats are going to start aligning with him? That's basically it. I can't think if Kamala runs, who's going to start backing Kamala. Again, I know to everyone in the chat, I'm just naming wonderful people that you're all very excited about running in 2028. So I can't think of anybody else who might run for president on the Democratic side. Josh Shapiro will probably run. He's the moderate, I put in quotes, from Pennsylvania. Steven Spielberg, that's who it was, to ditch California had a proposed billionaires tax, which, to be fair, Gavin Newsom does not support the billionaires tax. He's trying to kill it behind the scenes, but it's still his state. He's still the governor of it. So,
right. And he can campaign on passing Prop 50. While many of us don't like it, it was a pushback against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And people like that. So like that can be his, I fought for Prop 50 and got it passed and stood up to Trump.
Yeah, but Trump's not running in 2028. And we brought that up numerous times.
The whole thing is standing up to Trump. I mean, that's why he's in Germany, right?
Yeah, he's staying up to Trump and MAGA and all that. All right. So not surprising, Nancy Pelosi supporting Gavin Newsom. All right. Any comments or questions before we... Somebody said he'll lose worse than Kamala.
Hopefully.
I might give him more credit than that. I might say he actually does. Kamala didn't get one primary vote. I will say that he does get a primary vote. So
yeah.
He'll do better because he'll get at least one. She didn't get any, but let's see. What is it? Wait till we see the Cali gas prices are in 28. Wait till Vance calls that out during the debate.
Speaking of.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, well, isn't that our next topic?
Oh, yeah. That's an excellent segue. Good job. Yeah. Usually I pick up on the segues. All right. Final story of the night. You guys keep putting comments and stuff in the chat. We'll get to your comments and chats and stuff like that towards the end of the show. But final story of the night, California, for as much oil we actually have in our state, they've decided instead of drilling here and making it more affordable here, they've decided that they're going to take it from the Bahamas. Gasoline-starved California is turning to fuel from the Bahamas. This is from Bloomberg. Shipments on a circuitous route are increasing. California imported more gasoline in November than ever before, with more than 40% coming from the Bahamas. The lengthy journey adds another layer of cost to California's already expensive gasoline market. Yet the phenomenon isn't likely to disappear soon, thanks to a combination of disappearing oil refineries, a lack of interstate pipelines, and a loophole in a 106-year-old maritime law. California has among the strictest environmental regulations in the U.S., making it costly for energy companies to operate in. Though a wave of upcoming refinery closures is prompting officials and regulators to soften their stance. On average, the closures could raise the cost of gasoline for consumers between 5 and 15 cents, which I think is conservative. Talks about the Jones Act. Under the Jones Act, any goods shipped between U.S. ports must travel on U.S.-built, owned, and operated vessels. Those tankers are in short supply and expensive to charter. There are about 55 Jones Act compliant oil tankers worldwide, compared with more than 7,000 oil tankers globally. So, not a lot of them. You probably have to pay a high premium. And you can see from this nice little drawing here, this is what it looks like December 15th. It has to leave from the Bahamas, go all the way through the Panama Canal, and arrive in Los Angeles almost 2 or 3 weeks later. And that's where we're getting it from. It goes on to say, blah, 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 talking about where it came from, more Bahamas. All right. But this is just another example of sort of sticking to your principles, even though it hurts you in the long run, because California has a ton of gas. They have millions. I think it was like, how many millions of barrels? I should have pulled this up. If you want to add some thoughts while I look this up real quick.
I was looking something else up, which I should have done prior to the podcast, so my apologies. Waiting for Grok to answer.
Here we go. 1.7 billion barrels of oil in reserve here in California. So, and then there's total technically recoverable, this is onshore and offshore, 30 billion.
What was
Undiscovered onshore, 150
Oh,
200
onshore.
million. Yeah, onshore and offshore, undiscovered offshore, 1 to 2 billion barrels. Yet, for some reason, we are importing oil from the Bahamas while gas prices are going through the roof. That's what they're sticking to. You found something on Grok?
Well, no, I know that the whole thing is climate change. And,
Mhm.
so which again, none of this makes sense for climate change. But we have other Western states that produce oil that are a heck of a lot closer than the Bahamas. New Mexico,
Yeah.
666 million. Colorado, Alaska, and then we produce like 118 million barrels. It's San Joaquin Valley and offshore. Wyoming, Utah, like we have all these states that are even closer. Again, none of this makes sense about climate change. Like that, like because they're just saying we don't want to drill in California because we want to be the cleanest state, but it's not really climate change, which is worldwide. Because how does that help the climate in the Bahamas, in New Mexico, in California, or whatever? Like the whole thing should be no drilling. I mean, I don't agree with that, but if you're gonna say this is so bad, then we should just not be drilling. Obviously, if it's just that terrible for the environment. But I don't understand the logic because there is none. And well, we're not going to drill here, but we'll drill there and then import it all. So if we're going to just import it, why don't we go to New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming?
Or why don't we build pipelines? That's something that California is known as an oil island because we don't have any interstate pipes. So there are, like, to your point, there are states that produce oil and pump oil, but we don't have any pipes into California. So we could be importing oil from within the United States, but we don't. Instead, we have to import it from third world countries like Iraq and Guatemala, and I'm trying to think of the other ones. Well, you can say the Bahamas if you want to call that a third world country.
I never know. We're always like arguing with other countries, and so no more Saudi Arabia for you, and like no more. I don't even know where we get our gas anywhere these days except the Bahamas, apparently.
Let's see. I'm trying to get the quick answer here. Of course, it's giving me the huge printout of everything.
Right.
I picked the wrong setting for Grok to answer my question. While it's doing that, I did want to pull this up because I always bring this up about how California used to be a very big oil producer. In fact, J.P. Getty, who made his fortune, the guy who, bankrolled Gavin Newsom. Well, not J.P. Getty, the Getty family who bankrolled Gavin Newsom. They made their money and their billions of dollars off of oil. They were an oil family. And this, in fact, right here is what Los Angeles used to be. LA was built on oil money. Like, it was built on oil wealth, oil money, lots of people, lots of prosperity and wealth. I'm not saying we want to have all this again, but it shows you how much oil is actually in California. And because they're so stuck to their principles about these green policies, they will really cut off their nose to spite their face and not just do the most simplest answer, which is drill, baby, drill here in California. And I feel like we're a broken record because we say this all the time. You could create a booming middle class blue collar industry here in California if you just took off the restrictions on drilling for oil here and allowed it to be done here under our worker protections, under if you want to make sure it's environmentally sound, sure, go ahead, you can do that as well. But who knows what's coming out of Iraq or Kuwait or the Bahamas? I mean, you want to talk about emissions and climate change and global warming. Who knows what impact they're doing? Do you think any of those countries really care about climate change or anything like that? Like, does it make a difference that I guess in their mind in California, it doesn't make a difference if you get oil from halfway around the world just because you didn't drill here. So good for you, good on you. You didn't do anything here, but instead you imported it from around the world.
Which is funny for a state that seems to care so much about immigration and being anti-ICE and like everyone should come here and everyone is, illegal on stolen land and blah, 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 blah. But we're okay with those same people being affected in their home country by bad policy, possible child labor, probably horrific working conditions. And, because we all know that there's sickness, illness involved often with a lot of these types of industries. And so that is where something America tries to at least be really safe about. And usually these third world countries don't have those type of safety working conditions. And so for us to be saying, oh, we're saving the climate by somehow getting this oil from elsewhere where they don't have these safe working conditions for the people, we're literally making them sick and not caring about them. But I guess we care about them if they come here illegally, then we want to protect them. But otherwise, out of sight, out of mind, we don't care. They're worthless to us. They're just nobody. I don't know. I don't get it.
All right, this was the number I was looking for, just to give you an idea of how much they're ignoring the fact that they are actually hypocrites on this whole climate change carbon emissions by importing it from the Bahamas. I asked Grok to tell me how much CO2 emissions would an oil tanker put off just to get oil from the Bahamas to California. It says 1,030 metric tons of CO2. And for analogy, for passenger vehicles driven for 1 year is the equivalent to an annual CO2 emissions from about 220 to 225 gasoline-powered cars for an entire year. So that's 225 cars driving for an entire year. Comparable annual electricity consumption about 140, 150 average U.S. households per year. Gasoline roughly the same as burning about 110 to 115,000 gallons of gasoline. That's enough to fill 2,300 average car gas tanks. For air travel, so into the TO202 or air travel similar to the CO2 from New York to Miami, or think as the emission share from any transatlantic flight from New York to London, it would take 25 to 30,000 mature trees to offset it. If you could somehow collect the CO2 gas at standard temperature and pressure, it would fill a volume equivalent to a cube roughly 90-95 meters on each side, taller than the Statue of Liberty, including its pedestal. And that's one trip. That's just one trip And how many trips are they said it's 40% of all gas is being imported from the Bahamas. It's not like this is once a year. This is happening probably every month. We're getting these or these gasoline shipments. And that's how much CO2 you're emitting. Rather than just drill and pump it and refine it here in California and save yourself all that CO2. But again, in California politicians' eyes, if CO2 is produced somewhere on the other side of the globe, it doesn't matter as long as it's not produced here in California.
I know you didn't ask, but I'm now curious about the comparison to cows, since the cows are so evil with all their CO2 emissions, and we've got to get rid of the cows. We got to get them out because they're apparently the problem. They're just polluting our air.
We're having fun with Grok tonight.
This episode brought to you by Grok.
We're not sponsored by Grok.
We're not sponsored by anyone.
We're not sponsored, but if Grok wants to be a sponsor, we'll welcome Grok as a sponsor.
This episode brought to you by us.
Let's see. You can keep talking while I wait for this answer.
I don't have anything to say.
You don't have anything to say? Okay. Let's see. There's a straightforward equivalence using cows, primarily through their methane emissions from blah, blah, blah. Cows are often cited in climate discussions for this reason, as methane is a potent greenhouse gas converted to CO2. A single cow belches 220 pounds of methane per year. This converts to a 2.8 metric ton CO2 per cow per year. Using another example, let's see, how many cows would it take? It would take one trip is about 400 to 450 annual gas produced by cows. So there you go. And again, we have a lot of cows here. If you ever drive up the 5, everybody's very, very well aware of the grapevine where you drive past those cow farms and you can smell that CO2 and that methane burning.
Practically next door in Cheeto Hills.
So that's the irony. And that's why I wanted to bring this whole story up, is because it just seems so hypocritical and stupid that as long as we import it from halfway around the world, it doesn't matter. We don't pretend those CO2 emissions happen, but you could eliminate over 1,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions per trip if you just drilled here in California. So,
and not to mention it's costing us.
And it costs us because it's expensive. We could be drilling here and producing oil here and flooding and creating more supply and lowering the price. But, hell, they could even, if they want to, because they're Democrats, they could even tax it. But they don't want to do that because they're such acolytes of the Church of Climate Change. They just can't find their way around it, and they can't fathom actually drilling here because that's so evil. All right. Any final thoughts about that story?
No.
Okay. I'm going to look through some of the chat right now. Thank you, everyone, again, for tuning in. Apologies for my voice being a little shaky tonight, but it's much better than it was on Monday. Monday or Tuesday, I was down for the count. I thought I could power through on Tuesday. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'll be fine. I'll just, take some cough drops. I'll be fine. I was not doing well on Tuesday. I was like, I just have to go lay down and watch a movie or something. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Oh, somebody said Pelosi's just the puppeteer. I won't repeat the end of that. All right. I think that's all for the comments today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on a different night, on a Thursday night. We'll be back next week, Tuesday. I'm sure I'll be 100% by then. Hopefully my voice is back to normal by then. But I was able to get the Trump impersonation out, so that's all that matters, as long as I got the Trump impersonation out. Any final thoughts before we log off for the night, Camille?
I'm good. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
I think by the end of it, you're usually like...
We appreciate you. I mean, we don't come on here just to talk to ourselves, but what we talk about you guys afterwards, we're really grateful.
Yeah, we love seeing the people in the chat. So we do it live so that people can be in the chat and we can create this community. So we love when people are here talking and chatting. My favorite is when I see people chatting amongst themselves in the chat, and we're just kind of here and they're chatting in the background. It's kind of cool.
And then, yeah, we always try to read all of it because sometimes you guys will throw out a topic that might be interesting, and we're always, looking through it to be like, oh, they want us to talk about this and that. So please be as chatty as you all want. We appreciate it. We read your comments.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. With that said, make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, all of that stuff. Helps us with the algorithm. And the best thing you can do that is 100% free that can support the show is share this with somebody else. Let them know we go live on Tuesday nights and come and join us in the chat. And we will see you on the next one. Later.